welcome to the Tactical Withdrawal Podcast. This episode, we're going to talk about getting into tournament play. I'm Csaba Joe Utvush, the filthy casual who can parry this, joined by Shawn Dougherty, the war boss of the fastest speed mob this side of the galaxy. And for the first time on our podcast, thank you, Shawn, from the top rope, we have Jeremy Webb. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you.
This episode is going to focus on practicing for and participating in tournaments. We are assuming that you've been playing for 6 months, a year or more, and you have an army that's mostly painted, and about 2,000 points that you're pretty familiar with. As far as getting a list to that point, you may have built it because the models are cool and you like them and you like playing them, or you may have done a little meta diving. But all that aside, one of the key features of getting into tournament play is knowing your list almost inside and out. And once you have that, there's some other things you need to do. And one of the first things, at least for me, having done a couple of tournaments now, was equipment. Normally you just show up with dice and a tape measure, but there's some things that help streamline gameplay. Jeremy, you've only done the one tournament, so from someone who's fresh out of the gate, what do you think? What was one of the most useful pieces that you saw people bringing out?
To be honest, at least from our group, Shawn, in his graciousness, turned me on to tabletop tactics products. And not so much the objective markers they make, which are great and properly sized. When I started playing competitively with you guys, I was using the wrong size objective marker. They were too small. Is the wound tracker / effects pointers that they sell. For those of you who may or may not have heard of these, it's a little brass triangle with a slot cut in it that if you say have a psychic power cast on a unit, you could put the card upright in the slot pointing at the unit, so you know that unit has the effect. And it also has a cutout on the back that will hold either a 6 or a 10-sided die for tracking wounds. Those I think are great because no more losing the die or it accidentally getting picked up and rolled for an attack, which before I bought those things, I will sadly admit I have done. And lost wound markers off of units that, adversely affected the outcome of the game because my opponent didn't remember that unit was wounded either. And then suddenly it was like, hey, wait, didn't I hit that guy 4 turns ago? And, well, I don't know. There's no wound die there. So
we have our own little Vanna White. Shawn, with the wound tracker, what's your favorite piece of kit to bring? Because I know you have the cart, but after the cart. Or actually, talk about the card a little bit, because that's something that's...
I mean, that's a premium thing. I really wish I had had that the first year that we went to the ACO. So, typically, people are going to be used to playing in their local gaming store, right? Where the tables are about 4 feet away from each other, and there's no more than, 10 people playing, 12 people playing. At our local store, we get about 18 people tops, and the tables are pretty close together. That being said, sometimes you're bringing an army that's a little bit larger, which, as was alluded to, I run orcs, so I'm usually putting a lot of models on the table. Moving them from table to table is kind of a pain. So we picked up these nifty little fold-out carts off of Amazon. I think they maybe ran $50, $70. They have a whole bunch of different sizes, and it's big enough to throw a tray on or whatever, hold all your materials and wheel it around. It also makes it easier to bring around things that, are very important, like water. If you're at an extended tournament, making sure that you have food with you. You're not always going to get a break that's long enough to actually go and get sustenance, and you have to eat. You have to stay hydrated, or you're going to wind up at the last game of the tournament drooling all over yourself and stumbling around.
That's not normal?
Or passing out in a rainforest cafe.
Right. I mean, not everybody drinks, a bottle of wine per table, but sometimes you do, and you need a cart to lean on.
Yeah.
So, but here's what I'll say: for those of you who don't have the room for a cart or don't think that you need it, my new favorite device, the Humble Fanny Pack. This bad boy carries your data cards. It carries your dice. You could even put a little fold-up dice tray in there. Extra rulers, measuring tapes, whatever you want. Tokens, snacks.
I remember you breaking that out for the practice game we did for the doubles tournament that we all just participated in, and I saw it at first. I was like, all right, that could go somewhere, and you were just pulling stuff out left, right, and center the whole game. I was like, dang, I gotta get me one of them. And then I looked down and remembered I had cargo pants.
Right. I mean, cargo pants is a nice sidestep. I do own a lot of cargo pants.
But you got both.
Speaking as the quintessential dad joke guy of the group, I don't go anywhere without cargos on, so.
Yeah. Well, that's from your profession. I'm sure having those extra pockets.
That too. There's also a few things in I'm a stagehand by trade, so that's what he meant by my profession. There are a few things that I'm thinking of now that we have in that, like this lovely chest harness that guys will wear, that, you know, your radio and your tape and a few pouches would probably be just as useful as your fanny pack, and probably a little less nerdy.
So here's what I'm thinking. On your next tournament, you wear the harness and you get a different tape measure for the movement phase, for the psychic phase, for the shooting phase, for the charging phase, a real big one with a picture of corn on it.
Bandolier.
Yeah.
I could do that.
I like it.
Yeah.
I could do that.
Here for this.
Have my cell phone pouch mounted.
Yeah.
The whole nine.
We could build you up a little bit like Data from the Goonies. Put like a little PVC pipe hanging off it. So you could drop your dice in and it just shoots it out at your opponent. Get one of those little track pieces from Hot Wheels.
I was thinking add a couple of metal plates, and then you put your models, just stick them onto the thing. So you're like, where my termagant? Oh yeah, here we go.
Well,
you just
you know,
put them down.
the Marines do have that rig they wear with the grenades and stuff. I could kind of mimic that. You'd have to buy me a special Army Green Tactical Withdrawal shirt, though, so I can match my army.
We have to buy it for you? You better start bringing it. You better start bringing in the viewers then.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean. Like you guys had to manufacture it. If I could get an Army Green shirt, we could do that. We should have tournament special shirts, but that's a subject for another time.
Well, we were going to get them, but the supply chain right now, because of still dealing with COVID, is a pain. So we actually couldn't get bowler shirts made in time. That was the plan, was to get these shirts made with special pockets to hold all of our very bad dice.
Yeah.
But they'll be coming up in the future. I have to do another round of shirt buying anyway for some of the people that joined afterwards, or some of the people that played with us all the time and for some reason opted not to get a shirt. Not naming any specific names.
Wonder who that could be.
I wonder. He's probably not even going to listen to this.
No.
So
Captain Fashion himself.
Yeah, he'll be fashionably late. He'll listen to it like a year later and be like, "Hey, did you guys check out this podcast I just listened to?"
Well, we need to get him 5 different ones so he can change throughout the tournament.
Oh, God. So that's a good point, because if you're going with a group, you know, maybe coordinate, maybe don't. That's your thing. But wear clothes that you're going to be comfortable in all day. And shoes. Absolutely. Shoes are a major part for tournament play. Figure when we went to ACO and the local tournaments, you're there for 10.5 hours, standing around, playing Warhammer. And if you don't have the right footwear on, I come from skateboarding for a while. If you don't have the right footwear on, you're going to be hurting by the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Especially as I'm on the younger end of the scale here, but you guys can attest, as you get older, that becomes way more important.
Well, again, being, grumpy old man, and doing what I do for a living, gel insoles are your friend.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I put them in every piece of footwear I own now. And nothing says ouch like standing on a concrete floor for 12 hours loading a show in.
Right.
So,
Jeremy, could you do me a favor? Can you just tune your mic down a little bit? You're coming in kind of loud.
Let me back it off a little. How's that?
A little bit better. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's fine. We could probably fix it later, but I don't. Less work, the better. We're all busy people,
Yeah.
Yeah. I made the mistake of wearing like flip flops to a tournament.
Oh,
no. Like, oh yeah, but my feet get so hot. They'll breathe better.
No.
Doesn't matter if you can't stand anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, last ACO, I brought my anti-fatigue mat for my standing desk at work. It's a money move.
That is a good idea.
And if you have one of those carts that Shawn was talking about, between rounds, you just fold that sucker up, throw it on the bottom shelf of that cart, and you go from point A to point B.
Or
It's
if you're
almost-
wearing the harness, just have a PVC tube upright on your back.
Oh.
You can just over and over.
Which, by the way, since he was so rude and didn't introduce our other individual here in the group,
Yeah,
I was
I'm
waiting.
the
I was
mystery.
waiting.
I assumed Kyle was running the camera magic behind the scenes. I was unaware that he would be participating in the podcast. But everybody, this is Kyle Mason, our resident cinematographer.
Yeah, our nearsighted farseer.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, that's even better.
Ooh, that's a good one.
If you ever need a new online handle, I think he just got it for you.
Mm.
The only handle I need is one full of scotch.
So moving, and honestly, that's actually a really good segue into the next set of things I wanted to talk about, because I have made a major error in etiquette, which is something that when you go from, casual play to tournament play, can happen pretty easily. There are things that you may not be used to telling people about your models or asking them about their list that might cause an error in the in-game, or might leave someone, I think the polite way to say it is a little bit salty at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to start with Shawn and Kyle here, because you guys have more tournament experience than the other two present. What were some of the things that you picked up on pretty quickly that you needed to have disclosed or just disclose out of the gate?
Is that me? Am I going first? Is that what the outside
Yeah.
looks? Okay. That's a tough one. 'Cause there's always something. There's always some kind of gotcha that someone might not know about. For me personally, the one that stands out most is Manda Blasters on. It's actually doesn't even matter anymore. It was 8th edition Manda Blasters, because they just did mortals in the fight phase before anyone else got to go
Oh.
first.
Sorry, what's a Manda Blaster? Because I came in on the back end of 8th off of Kill Team 2018 and just sort of played a weird Tau list all the way into the beginning of 9th.
It's an ability on striking scorpions on the Eldari.
Mm-hmm.
In 8th edition, you rolled a die for every striking scorpion you had, and on a 6-up it did a mortal.
Mm.
And now it's wound rolls of
Ow.
6 do a mortal.
Right. Yeah,
So-
that's a really good example of it, of the kind of thing that it kind of swings how much effort you have to put into killing your opponent, right? And I want to actually talk a little bit more generally about that. Sorry to cut you off there a little bit, but so as a broad rule, right, you'll find that at a lot of top tables, these people play a lot, right? And I would, from reading online forums, not everybody gets to play as often as we do. We are blessed that we have a large group of people that get together at a very safe place that we can all kind of be at home and we can play a lot. It's not even a local game store. We can play whenever we want, right? People that play a lot will tell you, hey, if you do this, there's a good chance I'm going to heroic into you, right? I'm going to tell you once, and then after that, it's kind of up to you, right? And most of the time, in these higher level play games, when you show up to a table, you should already know what to ask your opponent. Don't expect them to tell you. Most people will be very courteous and they'll try to tell you, but sometimes they're not even thinking about it. They're having a hard time dealing with all the rules. The current state of play is so rules heavy that most people have a hard time even grasping the concept of their own army without understanding how it impacts you. They just want to play the way that they know how to play, and that's kind of the point of this conversation we're having, is how to help people that don't know how to play the game and haven't played quite as much to understand how competitive play works, right? So when I walk up to a table, there are some things that I always ask. Do you have access to advance and charge? That's one of the first things I ask all the time. Do you have access to redeploys? Do you have forward movement? Can you move before the game starts? Right. Some of the other big things. Do you have a way of ignoring invulns? That's become more prevalent in the current state of 9th edition. Right. That's a big one because a lot of people depend on invulns on their army. If you're playing a psychic heavy army, which I don't ever, but if you're playing psychers, you ask, hey, do you have a strat to auto deny on a 4-up? Because that might change the way that you go for your secondaries, your psychic based secondaries, right? Things like -1 to hit. That was always a big one for me, just because of playing orcs. That's like 50% of my capability of hitting you in the first place. Fights first, fights last are always really big. And occasionally fight on death, but you don't really see that one too much. Those are some of the big ones to ask for, right? Some of the big ones that I will tell my opponent about are things that aren't as general. Things like auto explode, right? 1 CP, this thing auto explodes. You play that on a night and your opponent doesn't know about it, your whole army is going to pay, right? So everybody that played back before the new Orc Codex came out remembers the Burn Obama that would just fly into your army, do 3 mortal wounds, everything within 6 inches, and it would just decimate armies. And if you didn't know it was coming, you would just leave these big holes. I would tell people, as much as I wanted to kill half of your army, it felt so bad. I would tell people, hey, you should redeploy some of this stuff because you left me this big hole, and I'm going to fly right next to all 3 of your support characters, and I'm going to blow them up. I'm going to shoot them, and I'm going to blow them up. So those are some big ones that are prevalent to me. Obviously, everyone has different ones. Kyle, what are some other ones that are currently you go through now that you think you should tell your opponents about?
I kind of covered a good amount of them. Like, I do have a redeploy. I do have a ton of psychic spells, which they kind of change up. Playing heavily Eldar.
No, but some of those are important though, like telling your opponent what psych spells, like Jinx, right?
Yeah.
I don't
Jinx
think
is
I
a
know
big
what
one.
that does.
Why don't you tell them?
It's a gives you -1 to your save.
Oh God,
Yeah,
So it
real
doesn't
big.
even care about armor contempt.
that's
It worsens your save characteristics.
Do you have the capability of ignoring cover with any of your units?
I could bring a spell.
So you can ignore cover and -1 to your save. So all of a sudden, that unit that you thought was so tough sitting in cover, you go, nope, that'll be 6-up saves for you, please, sir.
oh, that's disgusting.
Things that ignore line of sight. That's also something that people kind of want to know about, because I like to bring D-cannons. They don't care if they see you or not, and they
They
will hit.
sure don't.
And they will hit hard.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't actually use a lot of that on line of sight shooting. I didn't really fall for the Rucka Truck meta. Like, that was never really my big thing. Jeremy, I know at least one of yours. I know you ran Eliminators at the last game, right? The ability for Eliminators, if you take that special gear where they can fall back when you go to charge them and just leaves you standing out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, the trade-off though is you lose a sniper rifle if you do that, because the sergeant gets that instead of his bolt rifle.
Sure.
Now,
Sure.
can you take that and put the Las Fusilli, Fusilli's pasta, the Las Fusil, on him instead?
You still don't get it's. You have to take the carbine to get that effect.
Okay.
But if you're taking a good squad of Eliminators, it's still worth it for playing the mission.
Yes, the only thing that kind of hinders you there is the squad is only ever 3 models. You can't bump to 6.
Yeah.
So you're left with 2 sniper rifles firing mortis rounds, which can be the difference between a character getting one-shotted or not by having 2 rifles versus 3. The other thing that I always tell opponents is, my captain, when I run the Phobos captain and the infiltrators with their Omni Scramblers, I spread them out, and especially in the backfield with the ability to deny deep striking within 12 inches of them of reinforcements. You're playing somebody that's counting on being able to teleport or drop in on like turn 2 or turn 3 a unit in your back line, and well, suddenly they realize they can't because those Omni Scramblers are there keeping that from happening.
Absolutely, because a lot of people are used to seeing infiltrators play forward and prevent you from getting like deep strike charges, but being able to block the back line is big for people that depend on engage on all fronts. I think the secondaries are a little bit more feasible now that there are choices besides engage on all fronts, but for a while that was like the only one I could take as orcs that made any sense. So you preventing me from going into the backfield just screws my whole plan up. So that's another really good example to tell people.
Yeah, and to your conversations you and I have been having about my army and developing it, going from 10-man squads to 5-man squads, and still investing in the comm relays so that your leaders' aura effects go to the squads is something that I know I'm going to adopt in the future. Instead of taking 10-man infiltrators, I'll take 5-man and just double up on the number of squads that I buy, which gives me even more of those areas. You know, in theory, you spread them out right, you can deny the entire half of the battlefield.
And there's something important about that as well, because I found that a 10-man squad doesn't cover as much. It doesn't cover twice as much ground because of the way that you have to use unit coherency. A 5-man squad can almost spread out just as far as a 10-man. And if you're spreading out a 10-man that far, you're running the risk of getting one popped off, and then all of a sudden you made that like they called it the sacred tribunal when people first saw the unit coherency rules. But you make that triangle in the end, you lose one model, half the squad's gone, right? So now you run these 5-man squads, you get more options. And another thing to tell people if you're new to a tournament, drops is a big deal. Having more things to put down to respond to your opponent. It is. I win 70% of the games that I win because of deployment. It's a puzzle, and you have to learn how to play that puzzle. And dude, we practiced deployment before last year's ACO. We would deploy our army. We'd do a couple of like mock-up, like what if I did this, what if I did this, and go, oh wow, no, this is bad. I shouldn't have done this. Yeah. Re-rack, do it again. And that kind of practice gets you in the mindset for it. And it does two things too. So if you think that that's like trying to fine tune a little bit too much to playing the game at a high level meta, it also helps save you time, right? Because right now I'm going to a tournament this weekend, 2.5 hour rounds.
Whoa, that's it?
That's 2.5 hour rounds. And with Nephilim, most of the points are scored in the second half of the game. Our last tournament, our opponents couldn't even talk it out. I've never been at a game before where people are like, I can't talk this out, because they're like, we don't know who's going to win, but you guys are beating us by 20 points, so you win. And that was it.
Yep. Now, and actually, I think that'd be just a chalk up put on our little idea board, the vision board, is we should do a live stream with like a top-down camera where we go over like deployment stuff. Like a Twitch stream in the future. I think that would be a pretty helpful like little piece of content.
Yeah, if anybody's watching this video, we're eventually going to throw it up on YouTube. We'll keep it stored in like the Twitch videos. If anybody likes that idea, or if you hear us talk about anything and you'd like us to dive a little bit more into that kind of information, or do like mock-ups or anything like that, like any ideas, we're open to it. We're just starting to do these videos and do these podcasts, so we'd love to get some feedback. Right? No ideas off the table. Well, some ideas may be off the table. I don't know. It depends on who's watching. But I think that would be a really good one. So if you guys are interested in that, just let us know, and we'll get to it.
One of the from Vinny.
Hey Vinny. One of the things for me, like, and Shawn and Kyle, you guys kind of helped guide me into tournament play. You picked me up as a muling little fish person at a local tournament and helped me ride it all the way to ACO. One of the big things for me, because Armor of Contempt came out not too long before that, was I didn't know which units got it and didn't right up until then. And then I was like, okay, Storm Shields don't get it. These don't get it. As much as asking your opponent, you should also ask if you're in a doubles tournament, what your buddy gets. I found out at the bottom of round 2 this past weekend that Custodes don't get Armor of Contempt. Didn't know that. That was new information to me.
They didn't need it.
They definitely didn't need it.
No, they don't need it.
They don't. No. Having been on the same side of the table as them, they're fine. Mm-hmm. So the other part of etiquette is manners. It's a big thing in gaming. Like I used to play a lot of Magic the Gathering, and people can get more than a little heated in the competitive scene there. And the same thing applies here, depending on your local scene, depending on the size of the tournament you're playing at. You may not always be playing with the most level-headed people. And like we said, you're playing for 10 and a half hours. Someone misses their lunch or whatever that break between round 1 and 2 is going to be called. You can get a little cranky. And some people aren't the best at keeping their heads on. So part of it is every now and then, maybe like someone flies their orc bomber jet into your backline and blows up your storm surge turn 1 and wipes out half your army, and you're having a bad day as it is. The best thing you can do, you got to take a deep breath, remind yourself that it's a game. That gets harder the more wins you've had over the course of that tournament, but at the end of the day, it is a game. And you need to be able to kind of take that sort of thing with grace. It takes a lot of practice to do that. And every now and then, some of us still get salty.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I know I'm guilty of that. It gets frustrating, especially when you're really first getting into this competitive scene now, like I am, and even more so for me because I've been playing, like I said before the podcast, since the mid-'90s, and I've never really been much into the competitive scene, but I can remember when it was drastically different than it is now, where sportsmanship and army composition were just as important to your overall score as wins and paint. So I've come into this with completely the wrong mindset, expecting that sort of play, and it's just not the same anymore. So it gets really hard sometimes for me to try and keep positive with it. One of the things that I've always told myself, especially at this doubles tournament we were just at, is, I'm not looking to win. I'm too inexperienced to really pull off effective wins right now. I'm looking for the fun stories. Like I think it was my match against you, Shawn, where I rolled the 21 saves that were all 4 and up in one die roll. That was
came back to the back of the other table and told us that, and we were like, "How the hell did you pull this off, man?"
Yeah.
Kyle was
sort of thing.
Kyle, you could just his face right now.
215 points of swooping hawks. Just
Oh,
okay.
no. Just completely impotent on the board.
Yep.
I was so excited to roll those dice. He moved everyone out of the way. He's like, "Let me get that dice tray." Just throwing dice down, and we're watching all the 6s fall. We're like, "Oh, you about to end this whole man's career?" And then Jeremy was like, "Nah."
We ain't worried about this.
Oh, the hell with it, throw. Wait, I'm still. Oh, okay. It doesn't matter though, because the next turn we were annihilated.
Swooping hawks use splash.
It's highly effective.
Can they learn? Does that mean they can only learn HMs?
Yes.
I guess.
I don't understand what that means.
There's Pokemon reference.
Yeah.
I'm the old man that doesn't know what you youngerns are talking about.
But again, it's important to keep yourself in the spirit of the game. Sportsmanship, especially here at Tactical Withdrawal, that's one of the things that we try to focus on. It's in our bio on the website. We try to focus on the therapeutic aspect of the game, and it's here to have fun. We choose to be competitive with it, and part of making that choice, for those of you that do choose to be competitive with it, is understanding where your limitations are and how to kind of sort of manage yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I came into the club as a casual player, and after my experiences and talking with you guys, I want to learn how to be a better competitive player. So that's why I'm on the podcast now as the amateur and giving the amateur perspective for playing in tournaments. So absolutely what these guys are saying is 100% true. And if you're a competitive player, a casual player, and you're looking to get into the scene, you really need to sit back and look at your own mindset when you're playing. If you're playing casually and for fun, the competitive environment may not be something you're going to do well in, because it is a different mindset. There is very different styles of play versus being a fluff player like I've been to this point. So, where am I going with this?
there's definitely a middle ground here too. Okay, so one thing I will say is that feeling you get of losing a bunch of games and you haven't played in competitive play, everyone gets that. When you're playing at a more competitive level, like even just with our internal group, I can't tell you how many screaming matches I've gotten in with some of my best friends. Like, I'm embarrassed to even say it. Over stupid rules because we're both playing as hard as we can, but we're both trying to understand a game that we picked it up after a long hiatus, kind of like you did. And there was all these rules that we were getting wrong because they were rules from past editions constantly. And those were some of our biggest arguments. We don't do that anymore. Like, when we argue about stuff now, it'll be about like doing silly stuff on the table or people just having a bad day at work, and that comes out into the game, but we don't really argue about the game anymore. So the experience of getting in there, even if your experience is losing more, it's getting out there and learning, okay, well, if I keep losing, like, I can't keep doing the same thing. I need to watch some battle reports, listen to some podcasts. You know, obviously, if anyone's watching this, like, you're doing something about it, right? Nobody's coming to watch the Tactical Withdrawal Podcast for the latest up-to-date rules composition discussions from people that are winning worldwide tournaments. You know, if anyone's listening to us or they're watching us, it's because they want to see what a bunch of regular dudes who are trying to get out there and get better at the game are doing, right? I like to think of myself as a good player, but I'm certainly not hitting top 10 tables. Like, I went to ACO, I got like 27th. That was like amazing for me. That was well beyond my expectations. And but I had some really good games along the way, and that comes from playing a lot, knowing my army like the back of my hand, knowing what my limitations are with my army, not even necessarily as a player, just knowing what I can do with my army, what situations are going to be bad for me. And you're not going to get that unless you play in a competitive environment. So I suggest everybody, even if you are a casual player, just try it. A lot of people are probably very scared. I was so scared to go to tournaments for such a long time. I was like, I'm going to go out here and I'm just going to get blown away. And I just kept thinking everyone else is going to be way better than me because they're already going to tournaments. And there's the timer on it. Like, we're so used to playing these like 7-hour games where we're just drinking beer and eating pretzels, you know? And I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? We put out a time clock. We were timing ourselves. Went up to the tournament. Nobody put a timer out except one guy. And it didn't matter because he quit after the first round. And, we just had a blast, and I bought a drink for every opponent when I get a chance. I try to offer, I tell everybody what I'm doing. Like, I don't want to be the guy that's getting people with gotchas, and then everyone's in a good mood. You build conversations, you make friendships. I played with Csaba in a tournament, and that's why he's here. Half of the group now are because I played against them, and we had a good time. I beat Austin in a very clincher game, and then now he plays with us, and he's rocking the shirt, and he's a great member of the team. So just go out there, get some experience, whether it's the wins or the losses, and from there you'll start to figure out where you belong in the scene. And that doesn't mean playing every weekend. Some people can do that, but if that's not your thing, play a couple games. You'll get a little bit better. You'll play a lot faster. You'll feel more connected to your units and to your codex. You'll understand it better, and hopefully that brings you more joy.
And and that's kind of at the end of the day, we're a bunch of grown men playing with little painted dudes that we made, and that kind of takes us to the next point. A big part of, like, you of course you'll know your codex, and I want to throw this to Kyle and Shawn again because their units are very confusingly named some of the time. And knowing which one of your opponent's units are what, like a Rucka truck or a Snaz jet, like what the difference between those is, or like a D cannon, or there's like a D scythe in Kyle's army, and like I've got like 3 different guys with the Fire Warrior tag with the same helmet on. Like, that sort of thing is really gonna mess with.
Let me see if I can do it real quick.
He's got it.
Boondocka Snazwagon, Rucka Truck Squig Buggy, Megatrack Scrapjet, Shock Jump Dragsta, Wazbomb Blastajet. There's the Docker Jet too, but nobody ever gets that one confused. And there's the Blitzabama and the Burnabama. Those are the big ones that people get messed up. It's the buggies. Everyone has a problem with the buggies. Warbiker, nobody ever goes, yep, that's totally not a Warbiker. That's probably something else, right?
Anything that was in the Speed Freaks board game is the things that people get confused with.
There's the Morkanaut and the Gorkanaut, which I will never know which one is which.
Well, so actually, the way to remember it, and this is the hot tip for anybody, is Mork is cunning, but also brutal. Gorkanaut is brutal, but also cunning. Gorkanaut has a better attack profile. Morkanaut has killier energy-based guns. Gorkanaut has like all brutal guns. It's all like percussion, percussion. Yeah, it's like high, high number of shots, rockets and stuff. Morkanaut's like custom blasters and stuff like that. It's all energy-based weapons. So that's the way to think of it. The thinky, but also brutal, or the brutal and also thinky.
They actually, to take a brief segue there, the easiest thing I that I found is in Age of Sigmar. There's Gobsprak Mouth of Mork, and he's a wizard. And then there's the guy on the Maw Crusher, the Iron Jaws character, and he's the Fist of Gork, and that was where that clicked for me.
I love how every one of our podcasts turns into orc.
It's
I can imagine why.
Actually, I had a question. This is a shower thought I had today. Shawn, you're a vegan. Would you eat a squig? Because they're mushrooms.
I mean, it depends on.
I know the orcs are, but
if I think the squigs are also made of fungus, but don't quote me on that. I feel ashamed that I don't know the answer to that. But here's my answer. Is the squig trying to answer me? This is a Boolean answer, right? This is like for any programmers out. This is a ternary operator. Shawn eats squig is equal to is squig eating Shawn.
So if it's trying to eat you, you'll eat it.
Yes.
Okay, that's fair.
Technically, I have eaten squig, but it was cake.
Was that at Games Day?
Yes.
I was there too.
The club that I was part of had a table about 50 feet away from Duff's little Ace of Cakes display, and when we were breaking down the club tables, they shared it with all of us. So I got to eat squig.
I bought my first squig-off at Games Day. That particular one.
I always forget you have a squig-off.
Yeah. It was a good time.
Well, that was a regular squig-off. I have the gargantuan squig-off now. He's grown in that amount of time.
He's grown.
Did you feed him after midnight? You're not supposed to feed them after midnight.
No.
What am I supposed to do? It's when he makes the most noise. I got to go to sleep sometime.
So, back on track a little bit. So, pointing out things to your opponents that will help them differentiate between your units, because, like Jeremy, you run Space Marines. Once you throw a couple of guys in Gravis armor down, like sometimes the line between an aggressor, or an eradicator, and an
Inceptor.
Inceptors, those are a little easier because they fly.
Space Marines.
All right, I did it. Now, Jeremy, can you name all the Space Marine models that start with an I?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Or with an I?
Yeah.
Well, you have all the varietals of Intercessor. You have Standard Intercessor. You have Heavy Intercessor. You have Assault Intercessor. There's the Inceptor. There's the Infiltrator. There's the Incursor. I think that's it.
Interceptors. You have Impulsors.
And those are tanks, though. Those aren't Marines. Impulsors are vehicles.
Technicality.
I still get my Interceptors and my Impulsors confused.
Well, Interceptors are the Stormhawk Interceptors, so technically they're Stormhawks first.
All right, that's fair. But we kind of see the theme here, where when you say if someone isn't accustomed to playing, like say their local store doesn't have a Marine heavy meta like ours does, so they play someone who's doing a lot of Marines, and then they go, yeah, I'm going to charge your Interceptors or your Intercessors, and they meant Infiltrators, because again, it all starts with the letter I for the Imperium.
Yeah. For 3 years, we did not have a Space Marine player in our group. I was so proud of that. And then you and all your friends came, and every single one of you played Space Marines.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I plan on starting Leagues of Votann when they come out.
You and everybody else.
At least I'll have something other than Marines until I get bored with it and sell it back to you guys and buy more Marines.
Or hear me out. You play a good army.
Oh, okay. That's I earned that one.
You filthy homies. The beaky thinks he can come out and play.
God, so
Montai.
Kyle.
You've been playing this
Guela.
space for too long.
So for your elves, I think the rangers are the ones with the cloaks, right?
Yes.
That's about all I got.
Okay. There's also our tanks, the Wave Serpent, Fire Prism, Night Spinner, and Falcon. Are
All the same model kit, right?
pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
And it's very hard to differentiate which one is which. I mean, the Fire Prism, it's only the top that's different. The Fire Prism's
So
got
it's
a
like
big...
the Imperial Guard tanks a
Yeah.
little bit.
Well, not quite, because the Wave Serpent has a longer hull when you add that Guga on the back, and the
It's got the little fins.
spiky bits off the wings, yeah.
Yeah.
But then you go into the Forge World.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
don't even
true.
start in the Forge World.
How many different versions of the Wraith Knight are there?
6?
I don't know. There's too many.
A Forge World or just in general?
In general, including Forge World. There's a lot.
Yeah, I think 6 is close to.
That was an off the cuff guess. You guys keep on riffing, but so where I was going with this is it's important to ask your opponent to differentiate between these sorts of things,
Right.
because like for me, if you see dudes for as a mostly Tau player, the guys with the short guns, they're breachers. They got flat backs on their helmets, and I got 2 guys with pointy backs on their helmets, and those could either be Pathfinders or Fire Warriors. And if they got long guns, they're Fire Warriors. If they have short guns, they're Pathfinders, but sometimes a couple of Pathfinders are going to have long guns. So, and you know, those different units are going to do different things. So you're going to want to know which one you want to target.
Already forgotten what
having
you said.
Everyone always does, and I'm horrible about this. I like to play with my opponent's head, and because I'll always remind them that all of them have the Fire Warrior keyword.
Quick thanks.
But that is important.
But quick thanks to Inquisitor Miggs for the follow.
Hey, how's it going?
His ears must have been ringing.
And it's important now with Nachman that I let people know they all Fire Warrior keyword, because that means I can auto finish my aerospace targeting relays at the end of my turn. Or, sorry, not Nachman, Nephilim.
If we ever get a chance to actually get our first filmed battle report on YouTube or somewhere in the archives, you will see me ask the question 8 times.
Yeah, it's
about what the unit is. I actually just got sick and tired of it. I was like, I don't care. I'm just gonna shoot them all.
Yep. That was the light bulb moment for me too, where I was like, yeah, it's not gonna matter what they are, they're gonna die.
It hurt for a minute though.
If they're dead, you don't have to know what they do.
That's completely true. And going off that, what I kind of bouncing off the point about being able to auto finish one of my faction specific secondaries, knowing which secondaries you can take. Like, let's say I was playing into Jeremy's list, knowing that he can screen out that back line. I'm not taking behind enemy lines, because that's fully dependent on me getting into your deployment zone. And deep striking is probably the easiest way to do that once I've gotten you to advance up the board. But if you screen out like that, I'm staying away from that one.
Real big one that came up in almost every game, and I'm so glad that you brought up secondaries. You should know how many points you give up in no prisoners if you think that anyone is ever going to take it against you. I had to ask my opponent every game, and they had to ask me every game, and I swear to God I forgot every single game. If I had wrote it down or if I had counted it out before I went to the tournament, I would have known. I just get to a point and I go like, I'm going to give up, 9 points in Assassinate or 10 points in Assassinate. I'm going to give up 11 points in No Prisoners if you table me all. Bring It Down is another big one. If you're running monsters and vehicles, like being able to tell people how many points they score on those like cumulative ones, it definitely saves some time.
Aboard the Witch if you're running Psychers.
Yep.
Yeah, because sometimes they're not characters. Like you get more points for characters, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like sometimes not characters. 4 Warlocks isn't a character.
No, that gives up 2 points. Those 4 Warlocks.
Same thing with Zoanthropes, I think, too.
Oh yeah, that makes sense now that I thought about it. Yeah, because Zoanthropes are a unit and so are Warlocks. Now the 4 Warlocks though, they get 1 collective cast, right?
4 they'll know 2 spells and get 2 casts.
And then when it drops below 4, does the cast go down, or?
I think it's at 3. It drops to 1 cast.
Okay. So that 4th dude's really pulling a lot of weight then.
Yeah, he's going to this weekend.
Yeah. Good luck for that in that, by the way, guys.
Yeah. We plan on him using Jinx because Jinx is not one that is just Asriani. Most spells they only affect your units, but Jinx just says until the end of the round, this unit gets -1 of their saving throws. It doesn't specify from them. So this means that he can cast Jinx on something, and then I can shoot him with my Sororitas.
Mm-hmm. Another important part of knowing secondaries is now with Nephilim, you can take all of your faction-specific secondaries, or if you're Space Marines, you can take, from the big codex and then from your supplement. And sometimes that's important. Like for me, aerospace targeting relays, huge. I just roll up 3 units. I can guarantee 9 points on turn 1. I can take clean victory. And if I can hold points for 1, 2, and 3, or 3, 4, and 5 if I'm Kalyan, I can take another 12 points. But knowing which ones are useful for you, and there are some that are going to be useful in general, and some that are going to be more specific. Like we were talking about, bring it down versus no prisoners. Like you're obviously not going to take no prisoners against a Knights list.
But you aren't taking prisoners; they're too big.
Exactly.
Bring it down is a godsend for that list.
Exactly. Yep.
If you have enough firepower to take down those Knights, could also be a trap.
That
is also true. Knowing when they're a trap. Our last round of the doubles tournament, Austin and I took retrieve Nephilim data, and we forgot about it and didn't do it at all.
Oof.
And had we done it once, we would have won that game, because that game ended up tied 79-79. If we did that one single time, we would have had that.
You would have won the tournament too.
Well, you didn't, so we won.
I'm actually honest. I was stunned and very excited that we tied a game. Like you never see that. I never see that happen, at least. And
just to clear the record for anybody who doesn't know what happened at that tournament, we also got gypped because we only got to make it through 2 rounds in one game and 3 rounds in the other. We had a whole 5 more rounds of scoring that we would have had to still keep us in first, except Nephilim has been done so well that you typically can't talk out a game. Mm-hmm. In second or third round, like it's not a clear victor like it used to be, which I think is fantastic, but also sucks for these really short games. It's actually one of the reasons we completely shifted what our army's going to look like for the next tournament, because we want to be able to just go fast.
We have half-hour less time.
Yeah,
I figure that's sometimes that could be like deployment and just movement and command phase for the first turn.
Dude, combat phase is a time killer, and I live in the combat phase. Like, that is my jam. A lot of people get tripped up on the combat phase. They don't understand, like, how to do pile-ins, consolidations, fight first, how to get your charges off right. Like, so many people get lost in the combat phase because there's so many things going on.
Mm-hmm. And
because of that,
it emulates that chaos very well.
Tons and tons of stuff goes on in the combat phase. So I find that for my tournament list, I kind of stay away from combat heavy. Unless it's going to be just like big hammer. Like, if I'm going to hit something, and I don't care what you are, you're going to just pick that model up. And I'm just trading one at a time, I'll do that. But if it's like, I'm going to go a whole front, like, I'm not running 90 boys anymore. You know what I mean? The amount of dice, I would need to hire somebody to come with me to count dice.
Or wear a chest rig, which will hold more than a fanny pack.
There you go.
Hey. We gotta get that. We gotta get the tactical withdrawal chest rig.
I'll link you on Amazon for where to buy the rig, and we'll try to find the one with the Alice webbing on it so you can make it more modular.
Or I'm just gonna show up with like an like a nightstand on wheels, the tactical withdrawer.
Well, if you run your orc list, I'll lend you Jack, the youngest, and he can be your dice squig.
No. I don't want him.
A big pot of dice.
Last time he was at my job, he like destroyed half of the kitchen.
You'll have to tell me about that after the podcast.
No, he didn't really. It's called entertainment.
Okay, just
Okay.
You almost called the kid a beating. That's all I'm saying. If he'd have done that.
Jeez. Remember, folks, this man he's a little bit older. It was okay to do that back in the day. I took a couple of belts to the real
Imperium is strict discipline. That's all right.
Yeah. Moving on.
He's got a very commissar style of parenting. And keeping all of the points that we've touched on so far in mind, one of the things that you want to do is remember, and Shawn started bringing this up, that at the end of the day, we are here to have fun. So setting a precedence with your local gaming group is very important, especially when you're practicing for a tournament that maybe not everyone else at your store is playing in. So beforehand, you want to go up and be like, hey, I'm getting ready for this thing. I'm down to play. Do you want me to throw into you like I'm gonna be playing at the tournament, or are we just here to have a drink, throw some dice, and just play a game? Like, how's that going? Because you don't want to show up and put like Magnus down on the table into someone who's like playing all tactical squads or something. Because they think tactical squads are cool and they're like having fun with the list. You're gonna generate a lot of animosity like that.
So let me ask from some public feedback or some feedback from you guys, because I never really got any feedback on this system, and it kind of fell off by the wayside. But I used to play a game called Dice Masters. Okay, and in Dice Masters, the game it's very similar to Magic in the sense that there are some very, very strong cards. There's some very strong combos, and you can win turn 3, right? But it's a much more casual game than Magic. There's a lot of dads; they bring their kids and play on a team, and it's a much friendlier atmosphere. And a lot of times you play themed games. One of the things that I read online, which has always stuck with me, is they use a light system. They use a green light, yellow light, red light, right? And obviously this doesn't really work if you're not bringing enough models to change your list up, or if you're not setting your games ahead of time. But essentially the principle is green light is you're bringing your TAC Marines. You're bringing that Phobos-specific Army of Renown because you just want to try this cool list. You want to be thematic. Jeremy has these really awesome painted raptors. We were at the last tournament. Some guy ran over to his table. He's like, "Oh, somebody's got raptors on the table. I'm so happy to see these guys represented." Mm-hmm. Right? And now they can be played well, but if you're playing them to play the fluff, you're talking about a green light list. I want to play these guys because they look cool. I think they're fun. That's when I'm going to break out the Morkanaut and the Gorkanaut, right? They're so overpriced right now. They're terrible, but they're such cool models. I want to play these doopy dudes. I didn't spend $150 on these 2 models for them to sit on the shelf and collect dust. I want to play them sometimes, right? Even though I'm a very hyper-competitive player, when I get into that mindset, sometimes I want to play the fun. In that list, if you're bringing Abaddon, if you're bringing Magnus, if you're bringing,
Disco
whatever. What? So more things can blow up in your backfield? Go ahead.
Yeah, I know.
But if you're bringing squads of Vanguard vets with Thunderhammer, Storm Shields, and Jetpack, right? If you're bringing those kind of lists, White Scars, or if you're bringing your Necrons with Scorpex and the Silent King, if you're bringing that stuff to that list, you're gonna get a talking to, and it's gonna be hey man, we said green light. Do you have anything else you can run? And then you can kind of make a decision at that point, am I gonna still play this game? Yellow light is typically we play yellow light when we're I want to get better at the game, but I'm not quite at a competitive level, or I want to try out some weird combos, right? I've never seen anyone play the specific army this way. I want to try something different. I'm going to try something cool, right? But you're going to throw some cool stuff in there. That list might have a Morven Vol in it. It just might have, well, that's kind of a bad representation because it's not really a bad sisters list.
Oh,
but you might bring you might have Eldrad in that list, right? But you might play something completely off key than your typical tournament winning list. Those ones are where you're I want to practice and we want to play a little bit slower. Maybe the game you go 4 hours. You go, but we want to try to keep it close to time. We want to try to build a rhythm, and I want to learn a little bit about these units to see if they will match up competitively. And you want them to hit stuff that's going to be a little bit stronger, so you can kind of power test them. If I say red light, I'm stepping on the gas from turn 1, we're gonna go. We're gonna be friendly. We're gonna play like we're at a tournament, but I'm bringing the heat. I'm not pulling any punches. I'm bringing everything. I'm bringing all my Retributors. I'm bringing Repentia. I'm bringing Morvenn Vahl, or I'm bringing Gaskell Thraka and a bunch of
the Squig Jeff.
Or I'm bringing my Speed Freaks.
One of those things you talk about.
Yeah, I'm running my Speed Freaks list, which is the one that I know how to run the most, and I'm gonna just play as strong as I can. And I think those are good lists to play into if you're someone that's also trying to get in the competitive scene, but you've played a couple games and you've gotten there. You don't want to jump right into a red list, right? I learned my lesson from that. People don't feel good when they get hit on the head with that. Doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter if you even have a good list and you're not a good, like, you haven't had the experience of the edition. You're gonna get rolled over. And it's not gonna feel good, and it might turn you off to the game, right? So, but once you've played a couple games and you get a flow for it, like if you feel like you can play a yellow light game with your red light list and you can kind of hold up against someone who's played a little bit more, maybe now you start getting in there. And that's when I'm trying to train. Like when we're training for a tournament, that's all we're playing. We're bringing everything that we can do, hands down. We're trying to score those 100-point games.
Yeah.
So setting that precedence using something, it doesn't have to be a light system, something to that degree, and planning your games is going to help you to get better at it. So with that being said, like, what are your thoughts on it? Jeremy, let me pass it over to you, because I know you've seen this in effect a little bit before.
Yes, I've been on the receiving end of it. That's really a good analogy, and I speak some Dice Master. I was playing that at one point as well. It has nothing to do with the whole bringing that to the kids game. It's just at the local game store I was at before I linked up heavy with you guys. Dice Masters had a really strong presence. So, but yeah, I mean, I totally identify with being a green list player with the way you just described that. I'm all about more of the fluff friendly, going for that, and that, like I said earlier, that doesn't exactly really work in the current competitive meta. So wanting to learn how to do a yellow and red list with what I currently own is something I'm very strongly going to be pursuing, and training under you guys and developing the best that I could possibly do with what I own. I know I have models that would probably fall into a yellow or red list. Like if a tournament allows Forge World models, I'll bring the Astraeus, the heavy Primaris with the Cannon of Doom and the Void Shields, and most people, like, I tabled an Orc player with it. Like, that one model personally accounted for almost 800 points of a 2,000 point list of Orcs. It's definitely a yellow model. I'd have to see it in more of a competitive setting, if it would be a red, but I need to explore doing that better.
It's definitely a yellow. It's definitely an upper yellow. Like, I have seen people try to bring it in competitive lists. It's not like, I would never put it in S tier. But the Astraeus is, you can build a list around it. And the reason I say it's yellow is it's one of those thematic type lists. Sometimes these lists go hot. I was just reading an article today about a guy that brought I think it's called a Bane Hammer, or
one of the
Baneblade variants. The Baneblade variant with all the flamethrowers. And it has like an actual combat potential, and he threw it into the middle field, and he actually did really well. I don't know if he won the GT, but he went 5-1 or something like that. And that's a thematic list, and card is not great right now. But he just threw this big cool model. He's like, I just wanted to see it on the table, and it actually went well. You can build lists that will take a tournament because people don't know. They're not building against that. No, people are building against Score Pack Destroyers right now. They're building against maybe Vanguard Vets. They're building against
Crisis Spam.
Yeah, not as much. Tower kind
not
of
as much anymore.
Right now.
They got knocked down pretty hard.
They're building against Source. They're building against Tyranids. They're building against Tyranid monsters all day. Everybody hates Tyranids.
The Astraeus, especially, I have the one with the plasma sponsons. It would wreak havoc on a swarm list. And the other thing, getting into the whole notion of the secondary scoring, I usually take Oath of Moment, and one of the points you get from Oath of Moment is having a guy in the middle of the board, and that thing, you put that in the middle of the board, it's like trying to dig out an Alabama tick, to quote the great warrior poet Jesse Ventura. It ain't happening easily.
So I hate to tell you this, but I don't think that's a good candidate. Because the Oath of the Moment says that you have to have a unit wholly within 6 inches of the center, and it's too big.
That's fair.
Almost had it.
I mean, you could argue that the base is what matters because it hangs over that
It's a
base quite a
vehicle. You
bit.
measured from the hull.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, no, wholly within 6 inches, doesn't that make a bubble with a 12-inch diameter?
It does. If it's less than 12 inches long,
And there's
then
not terrain clogging it, you can
it's
throw it in
not.
there.
it's probably about 13.
inches long and like 8 inches
Oh.
wide. It's
I just looked up the Australis because I didn't even know this unit existed, and I was like, "What is this thing? This is a big honking tank. It's like the size of my head."
that cannon on top. That is a twin macro accelerator autocannon. It throws a lot of high powered diddly downrange.
Diddly.
Powered.
Yeah, it's.
Oh
Like
man.
I said, I took a war boss on one of those battle bore squig whatever.
Boss on Squigosaur.
Yeah, one turn of
It's a
shooting.
beast boss on Squigosaur, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean that. To be honest, that was the only thing that really won me the advantage with that player, and also an inexperienced tournament player. He built a list that was trying to be too many orc things at once. He had speed freak elements and feral orc elements, and he kind of mashed it all together based on what he owned, and none of it worked effectively.
I do want to say, since we're talking about getting into tournament play, sometimes if you're dipping your toes in and you acknowledge that you're gonna get a beat down, probably mashing that list together of all the stuff you own, because that's kind of what I did for my first tournament. Is just a good way to get in there and see, like, all right, I own these models, which ones do good in a more rigorous setting.
He and I had a conversation, and I was like, you either need to go snakebite and build a feral list and drop all these buggies, or go speed freak and drop your ferals, or you own Thraka, build a goth list and base it around Thraka, and your world will be very different if you do that.
But the Shawn
First
thumbs
two
up.
things you said, I disagree with. The Thraka thing you said, I do agree with, even though I don't ever play Goths. I'm an Evil Sons tryhard. I've been playing it, even though the rules make no sense in the Codex. I play Evil Sons. I love Evil Sons. Is why I play Speed Freaks. But here's the thing that I will say about orcs, right? And I don't want to get too much about orcs, but orcs are about threat saturation. So having a bunch of different stuff is how they win, because a lot of times people are like, I need to kill all of it. It's all a threat to me.
It's like I can't just take care of the infantry or just take care of the elites. Like, I have to focus everything down.
Right. But there is a fine line between a cunning but brutal war boss and just a brutal war boss.
Right, and what you're saying is true. I think he didn't understand that well enough with his list, and it was too far spread, and he didn't really understand the interplay between his stuff. And just by sheer luck and having that giant, shovel plate of a tank sitting on the board, absorbing damage and annihilating so much stuff, I killed the right stuff at the right time to really turn the game to my advantage. And the secondaries as well. I mean, I always take engage on all fronts with my list because of the fact that my guys so many of my units get the hidden setup with the Phobos theme that I run for the Raptors. And again, a lot of my choices are fluff based on what I've read about the Raptors chapter. So I have lots of the guys that have the hidden setup, so I can jump on 3 table quarters at once if the deployments will let it happen. And you combine all that stuff together, and I just kind of steamrolled over the guy. But again,
it's not always going to be the case. You're not always going to have these games like that.
The one time out of maybe 30 rounds of tournament play I've played in since this edition, and I jumped in. That was the only real game that I truly felt like I actually won or even tied. My personal tournament record is probably 1 win, 2 ties, and everything maybe 18 or 19 like flat out annihilation losses. And it does get disheartening, like we talked about earlier, but you either stop playing and not learn from it, or you do what I like to think that I've done and acknowledge that this isn't working for me. I want to have fun with this, which means I need to learn how to play better, which means that maybe I need to change how I think about the game competitively. I can always play casual fun games with my friends like you guys and keep it fluffy and know that, hey, we're playing for beer and laughs versus, okay, I'm going to put on the tournament hat now, which, will help not blind my opponents from reflections, and I lost my train of thought because I was trying to be funny, and play differently, and know that it's okay to have a competitive mindset when you're playing the game. It's not going to dominate the way you think of playing the game. You're not going to turn into some win-at-all-cost player 24/7 who's just angry and throwing dice. And the math says that I should win every time because I'm doing this. You can have enough of both if you learn how to balance it all.
Yeah, and listen, if you want to bring that Astraeus out and have a friendly game, I do have this giant gargantuan Squiggoth beautifully painted up sitting right next to me, and I will happily.
How many points is that thing worth?
500.
Then they're evenly matched then, because the Astraeus is about 500 in terms of points cost.
Yeah, I think it's like 460, but then you can put the Squiggoth super heavy cannon on it. It goes up to like 480 to 500 something.
I want to say the Astraeus is at around 570 right now.
Yeah, it's Astraeus is a little bit more, but it has way more rules. Like it has like a built-in invuln and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like,
and it's got the
like
void
damage
shield.
reduction. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like that tank and the Squiggoth itself weighs more than most like those two models each individually probably weigh more than a 2,000 point army normally.
I agree with that.
Just one, like if we do it on one of these charity tournaments and it's a single player 2,000 point, I may just show up with the Warhound. Just like the hell with it. There you go. Have fun. And I know I'm not.
Can you reliably score secondaries with the Titans only?
No, I won't win a single game, but I'll be playing a green list for absolute entertainment factor in a charitable event, and I will laugh my ass off every game.
You know, the only thing that really kills you is that there's a rule in there that says that you can't hold more than one objective with the same unit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because if that was the case, that thing's big enough to hold like 3.
Oh, easily. Yeah. We have been running a little long. Real quick, each of us want to do an MVP, our favorite moment for the past 6 months to a year of gaming. I'll kick it off. Kyle, I have to give this to you. At ACO, you went day 1, you got knocked down game after game after game. Day 2, you were just in it. And we're setting up for round 6, and I just hear Kyle go, "I got it! I won 100 points," and he comes screaming by with a cracked open Heineken. He's like, "He didn't show up!" And you were just like laugh factory, man. That is my favorite thing I've seen the entire time we've been playing Warhammer. You are an indomitable spirit, man.
That's
on the table.
You gotta play it out. Never know.
Exactly. How about you, Jeremy? What's your big gaming moment for the past like 6 months to a year?
Of every game or just 40K?
Just let's stick with 40K.
Okay. Probably that charity event when his swooping hawks threw all that dice damage at me, and I went, nope, and 21 saves. And like I said, I don't think there was a single die below 4. It was all 4s, 5s, and 6s on that save, and it was.
I wish I
even
could
I was like, I swear I didn't cook the dice.
It's kind of hard to cook 21 dice.
Yeah, but there are people that
can barely cook 1.
So yeah, I think that just, I mean, we still lost that match badly, but that was one of those stories that I'm always going to have of, it was a rough game, but that happened, and we can always have a good laugh about it.
That's why we play. What about you, Shawn?
So I've had a few. I'm gonna give you 2 short ones because my memory is very short, and so you get short ones. When our practice game for the doubles tournament, there was a single Scorpec destroyer.
Oh God!
That wound up in combat with your Csaba, your Ghost Keel, and your Cold Star Commander for Enforcer for like 3 rounds, just capping an objective.
Yeah.
Because it had OBSEC, and they just couldn't kill it.
Shift them.
But I think if I had to really go back to a favorite moment, and I don't think anybody really realized what was going on, is for some reason everybody ignores plasma sites. So in our Tyrannid game, we were playing against Tyrannids and Emperor's Children with Abaddon. It was a super competitive game. At the end of the game, these two guys said that they had never lost a doubles game, a team game, in 4 editions. We were their first loss.
Wow.
And this guy ran in with his. I had a squad of Lich Guard and a squad of Scorpec Destroyers and a Plasma Sight. And the Plasma Sight was sitting on an objective. Now, this Plasma Sight had a Hive Tyrant fly in, had 10 Terminators, and had a Disco Lord come in. And they were so sure that they were going to pick up all the Scorpec and the Plasma Sight was just going to go away that they didn't even bother to charge it.
No.
So it was literally in engagement range of all 3 of these giant units. Any one model could have killed this thing 10 times. And he left 1 Scorpec alive against the Hive Tyrant, which meant he couldn't fly away, which meant that the Plasma Sight stayed there and capped an objective from all these models. Just sat there, this tiny little 15-point model, and held an objective, which gave us another 4 points and then another 2 points. And it was just like that single Plasma Sight scored us like 14 points that game. He just stood out in the front of everything and was like, I don't know, I guess this is my job. I just stand here, right? And everyone ignored it. And they did the same thing in the next game. He charged a full squad of Canoptic Wraiths. He even fought with them twice, but he didn't. He charged the Plasma Sight, and he charged my Lich Guard. I didn't even bother to kill the Plasma Sight. And the Plasma Sight sat there, and the next turn it ran in the middle and took the middle objective. It was surrounded by a Catan, 3 Zoanthropes, and a Norathrope. And it was just like, I don't care if you're like 700 points. This is my objective now.
You remind me again, and for the folks at home who don't even know what a Plasma Sight does, just run through that real quick and why it's important to not ignore this model.
Sure. And that's yeah, I don't think they knew what it was. So a Plasma Sight is a 15-point model that doesn't take up a slot for every destroyer unit you have. It includes Locust Heavy Destroyers and Scorpic Destroyers, as well as Ophidian Destroyers. And the regular Locust Destroyers, which I don't see as much. It has a couple abilities. One, at the beginning of the fight charge phase, you can roll a d6. As long as you don't, if you roll a 1, it kills one of the models in the unit, and you pick one of these destroyer units within 6 inches. Otherwise, they get even if so, they get +1 attack, +1 strength in that fight phase. It has the ability where if it's ever in the morale phase outside of 6 inches of a destroyer unit, it just goes away. It dies. If it's within 3 inches of a destroyer unit, you cannot target it with attacks unless it is the closest model. It basically has Lookout Sir. If you run it in the current OBSEC Dynasty choice for Necrons, it has OBSEC. And it is a 15-point, 4 toughness, 1 wound, 4 up save model. That's it. It has 1 attack at strength 3, AP 1.
And having played against a Plasma Sight before our match is exactly why my Melta-Speeder zipped right up to it when it was by itself and went, no, that's gone.
Yeah. Well, you did the wrong thing, too. You also shot a Melta-Gun at it when you had Scorpec Destroyers right next to you instead of using the machine gun.
I wasn't thinking of that. I was thinking that makes other units better, and I don't want it on the board anymore. I also didn't know you had a second one behind the wall that I couldn't see. So it was kind of like, well, that was a waste. Okay.
Oh.
Again, I'm still a rookie.
But it wasn't terrible to make sure you kill it, by the way. I mean, there's no defensive buffs I can give it. It's just so easy to kill that anything into it would have killed it. The point is that it's OBSEC, so I could have ran up and stole the point if you happen to have guys on the other point. And that was the big thing.
And it also speaks to what we were talking about earlier in the podcast of understanding your opponent's units, or if you don't know, ask. Because I didn't know that it had OBSEC. Or that it only had a toughness of 4 and only 1. I didn't know any of it. I just knew I had to kill it, which is why I overkilled it.
So Kyle, what's your highlight?
I'd have to give it to winning this most recent tournament. My tournament record is horrible. The first ACO, I had 2 wins, one of which was a no-show.
It'd be a trend with you.
Yeah. The second tournament was our 3-man tournament, which I didn't get a single win. Second ACO, my only win was a no-show. And so this one, 3 wins. It's definitely a feel-good moment.
Averaging out that KDA there.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys kick some teeth in at your tournament this weekend.
Oh,
In a friendly manner.
In a friendly manner,
Yeah.
you ask first, open wide, the boot's coming.
Just like the back teeth, so like the street value is still there.
Yeah, you got some bad molars. We'll get rid of them for you.
Yeah. Still got your
And then
wisdom teeth?
the Goths are gonna run off and spend them. Although you're not even bringing the orc list to the.
Yeah, I've been trying something new. I played only orcs in all my tournaments for like 2 years, and I was like, you know what? I have like 10 other armies. I should probably give them a go.
Mm-hmm. So with
Definitely
that, with that, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Real quick, Shawn, do you want to run everybody at home through where they can find us on social media?
Sure. Well, we are everywhere. Even though we don't have quite as much content up, we try to stay pretty up to date with Instagram, throwing up pictures of our games. We're at Tactical Withdrawal. Same thing. We're at Tactical Withdrawal on Twitter. You can also find us on YouTube. We're gonna put this video up soon. Twitch, Reddit. We've even got one of those. So anywhere, whatever your social media of choice is, just come check us out. And we also have a website. You can come find us at tacticalwithdrawal.com, and that should have a link to all of our social media websites as well as our podcasts and some other photos. We're going to do some bios soon. So
Very soon. So anyway, I'm Csaba Joe Utbush. And just to skip the line because I forgot him earlier, we have Kyle Mason, Shawn Doherty, and Jeremy Webb. That's all for tonight, everybody. Keep rolling hot, and thanks for watching.